Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Girl Ambition with me, Nia Baxter. This is your go-to space, as you know, for community, for empowerment, and practical tips to help you level up in every aspect of your life. Black Girl Ambition is not just a podcast, it is a movement. Now, think executive level coffee chat meets sister circle meets motivational masterclass. You can find Black Girl Ambition on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, YouTube, or your favorite streaming platform. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share with someone that you have not already. I would greatly appreciate it. So today, ambitious Black girls, we are speaking with Queirra Fenderson. Queirra is CEO of the Ambition Studio. Do you see the synergy already? She is CEO of the Ambition Studio, which is an award-winning executive coaching firm that retains and re-energizes high-performing women leaders while also strengthening a company's leadership pipeline. The Ambition Studio focuses strategically on future-focused industries where there is low representation from females. So think tech, think energy, think law. We know as ambitious Black women that professional success and achievement can demand a whole lot of us, but it should not be at the expense of our joy, our health, our relationships, our sanity. Any of this sound familiar? And we are no good to anyone, especially ourselves, if we are burned out. And that's the truth. Women leaders who experience burnout cost companies millions of dollars each year as well and lost productivity. And Queirra has a fix for that. So today we'll be exploring a couple different topics together. We're going to get into the Ambition Studio's balanced ambition framework. We're going to talk about systemic drivers and patterns for burnout, also especially at the intersection of caregiving, and actionable ways for us to reclaim our time and our power and our joy. So I hope you stay tuned. Thank you so much for being here today, Queirra.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. It is the synergy, the Ambition Studio, Black Girl Ambition. Come on. And then are we matching?
We are kind of matching.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Let's start by you telling me more about your career background. So what inspired you to launch a coaching firm?
Girl, I think I activated my ambition since I was in middle school. And then once my ambition got activated, it never stopped until something stopped me. And that's how I started the business. Most women, especially Black women, start their businesses out of need. And I was no different. So I was working at a startup venture-backed tech firm in Washington, D.C., dream job, director of marketing, had marketing background. I was the only woman of color, the second person of color, and they were at a stage where they wanted to bring in more leadership because the venture capitalist was like, okay, you all are growing, but you don't know how to run a business. And I had background in leading teams, campaigns, excelling, right? So they bring me in intentionally for that. And I know a lot of the listeners can relate to this because sometimes our leadership can be mislabeled as aggressive, as too direct. And we were having issues within the department that other departments and my direct reports kept coming to me about that the VP wasn't addressing. And we weren't that far off in age, but had different backgrounds and experiences. And so I remember speaking to her one day and saying, hey, the way you handled giving us the feedback around that campaign, it really threw the team off. When you get back from vacation, can we go out to lunch so we can just talk about it? Because she had been used to giving more of a authentic, off the cuff kind of style. And she didn't know how to really deliver good feedback. Well, that lunch never happened because instead, and this is back when, all the offices are open air. You had no private space in the whole office. She pulled me out of a meeting, brought me into the only private space in the whole office. The CEO, who was about, 33, was leaning against the wall, arms crossed.
I don't have a good feeling about this.
Chair sitting, face off. Please have a seat, Queirra. I go ahead and sit down, and that's when he tells me today is your last day. You're not a good cultural fit. And that is when God said, you will not go back because your ambition has not been keeping you safe. And so you have to show people another way and you need to figure it out on your own. And that set off the whole entire 10-year journey of the Ambition Studio. My mission is to make sure that us Black women who are driven naturally to be excellent, to be high performers, aren't abused, aren't overused, aren't depleted, and we know how to handle ourselves so that we can give our best, but we also have that discernment around what's best for us.
Absolutely. Because we want the systems to behave. We want to be able to not only survive, but thrive in them. But so, but they don't, right? And so much of it it falls on our ability to recognize when a situation is not serving us, be really, really clear with our boundaries and what our own vision for our life is so that we can make choices to live a full life, because no one is going to do that for us.
Yeah.
It's not
and
coming.
I think often the thing that happens is like we'll set our eyes on a prize and we'll be unwilling to veer away from that prize or pivot. And that was me. I knew something was up from the moment I walked into those doors.
Yeah.
And it'd take me a year to get that job, so I wasn't going to quit. But then 3 months later, God had a different plan. So it is just so interesting to navigate the internal and external pressure of being a high achiever, and how, like you said, the systems are not even set up for us. So how do we know how to make that right decision that's going to be for our prosperity, not someone else's?
Yes, a whole word. Being a high achieving woman, and a high achieving Black woman at that, it's just different. Like it's just a whole other level of how we have to operate. And also just, I find it very interesting, people's reactions to that, right? Like, do you feel a reaction to your ambition, to your high achievement, to your vision for your life? Like, it seems to aggravate people. Like, I don't often find that ambition feels embraced by those around me.
You just said nothing but a word, aggravate. That's exactly what it is.
Aggravate.
It like irritates them and agitates them.
Irritates them.
Yeah, because on one side, we're aggressive, we're assertive, we're mean, right? For those individuals who are not used to being in the presence of such power. On the other side, and I find this to be closer with like friends and family, it's, oh, there she goes again. You know how our culture can be. We got to like pick and play and mess with you a little bit, but subconsciously that gets into your head. Absolutely. It gets into my head. It got into my head. It has me questioning, oh, here I go again. Of course, Queirra won that so-and-so thing. Of course she did A, B, and C. It's not celebrated. And so you're damned if you do and you damned if you don't. That's why one of the most key tenets that we tell our clients is you have to start celebrating your wins, because nobody else celebrates high performers. They expect it until you get Olympic gold. But anyway, I'm gonna go. Listen, don't get me preaching.
I'm getting excited because you've already got me excited with this sounds like a pillar of your balanced ambition framework, which is celebrate your wins. Because girl, when I tell you, one, don't do that. Right? Like I am learning to, but I've recognized that over the course of my life, it's been a pattern of collecting achievements and then just moving on to the next thing and not taking the time to celebrate or rest. And when I've unpacked that, it's also been because no one celebrates with me. Right? Mm-hmm. Like on the family side, it is interpreted as bragging, perhaps. Yeah. And then at work, in these environments not built for us, it's not necessarily celebrated there as well. So I just learned, in order to not be disappointed by anyone else's reaction, I'm just going to collect achievements and move on to the next thing. As Beyonce said, the best revenge is your paper. Like let's just keep going. But it's also created, like we can get into a whole thing, hyper independence. It's not necessarily healthy. So I love that is one of the pillars. Let me get off my soapbox and let's get into the balanced ambition framework, because I want to know more about it. What are its foundational elements?
Oh my goodness. I love balanced ambition because I've lived it, tested it. It's based in neuroscience. It's based in practicality. It's based in meeting high achievers where they are. So it's a 3-part pyramid. And we like to say that our wellness pyramid begins with your tactical well-being, then it leads to your practical well-being, and then your enjoyable well-being. So the problem is right now we have it flipped. We take care of ourselves through enjoyable things, spa days, mani-pedis, quick vacation, those type of luxury, shopping sprees, things to that nature. But in fact, when you flip the pyramid in the proper direction, the first thing to making sure that you have a balanced ambition, you're not burning out, is taking care of your tactical things. Like, have you gone to your doctor's appointments? Are you going to bed on time? What are you eating? Right? The basic foundational things. Then you can move on to the second step, which is practical. So things like a morning ritual, right? Maybe it's going to your favorite yoga studio. It's celebrating yourself, making sure that you have a list of rewards to say, okay, when this milestone hits, I'm going to go get this, right? So it's kind of ritualistic, the habits that keep you connected and grounded. And then the top layer is enjoyable, your spa, your girls' day out, things like that. So oftentimes we see a lot of women coming in, playing with the enjoyable sometimes, and still wondering why they feel depleted. They don't feel motivated. They're not creative. And then we'll look at the base layer and they've been getting 5 hours of sleep and they really need 9. And women need more sleep than men. So we start there as the first foundation and then work your way up to the last level.
So tactical. So the tactical things are, because, well, to back up a little bit, when you talked about the enjoyable, the things that we love to do, like going out to brunch and going to the spa or girls' night out, those things aren't necessarily sustainable, right? They're not something that is we can do every day or every week. But the things that do sustain us are those tactical elements, like getting enough sleep and having a good diet that is nourishing to our bodies, going to our doctor's appointments and checkups. Like, those things are foundational to us too.
I love that you bring up the sustainable, because that's really where we look at the practical level. So foundational would be the simple things of, are you taking your medications? Are you eating right? Are you getting enough sleep? Sustainability comes in with that practical to say, what structures do you have in place that ensures that you're keeping up with your day-to-day wellness, right? Because a doctor's appointment's once a year. So things like, do you have accountability structures, coaches, therapists? Are you doing morning rituals where every morning you're going for a walk and you're taking your collagen and you're making sure so there's different pieces of the sustainability, the routine that keeps you going every day. And then, like you said, enjoyable is every once in a while. It's a big reward. It's the thing that makes you feel good in the moment, but it's not the long-term sustainability.
There is a lot of power in a good morning ritual.
Isn't there? Isn't there?
A good morning ritual. Like, I have discovered I need time for myself before my kids are jumping on me. You know, or I gotta make lunch and get kids out the door and that it leads to, I have more energy, I feel more clear, I feel less cranky with the morning ritual.
It's so true. And you got to change that ritual based off of the seasons, because my go-to is a walk. And in the wintertime, if I don't have that vitamin D and that sunshine, you can't go for a walk when it's freezing cold outside, but some way you need to get that, like you said, that space for yourself, that peace, that connection to nature, to say, like, the world is not inside this computer.
What does yours look like? What do you do?
It depends on the season. Right now, with things being warm and also having a 5-year-old, it is getting up before her, even if it's 15 minutes, even if it's enough to wake up, open up the blinds in my house, open up the Bible, say a quick little word to God, maybe step outside and feel the sun on my face before I have to fight with her to wake her up. But once
Not
she's
fight.
She plays me. She doesn't play her dad. I don't know what it is with her dad. He has it on T. For me, it is a whole drag out fight. But once she leaves, that's when I really get started. So I'll go on my walk and I'll either listen to something inspirational or just talk with God as I'm walking. Make sure I have my weighted vest, weight resistant. So integration is a big piece for me. I'll also drink my tea on the way. Integration is the only way I can make things work. If I can stack things together, I can bust them out with that walk, boom, come back, get dressed, and then doing my journaling, setting my intentions for the day. So it doesn't have to be really heavy and extensive, but it's a lot of integration. Like, how can I get my mind fed, my body fed, my soul fed, that type of thing, all at the same time within a short period of time, because I don't have a lot of time in the morning. So we got to integrate.
Same.
Yeah.
I like that concept of integration. I like that a lot. But how do you help a woman recognize those early signs of burnout before it happens? Like, they're going down that path and they have to change something?
Listen, it's such a good question because I'm a hard head. It usually takes myself and the women that I meet until they're burned out to realize it. It's like you don't know you're in a recession until you're in a recession. But if I was to give you warning signs, the first thing to look at is when your boundaries start to erode and you start to negotiate with yourself. That's it. The minute you start having conversations with your confidants, talking about how someone stepped over a boundary or can you believe they did this, and it doesn't align to what you want or how you need to operate, and you choose not to reinforce the boundary, that is when burnout is going to start seeping in. It's like a power leak. It's like a little hole in a boat and the water just starts filling up. And over time, the boundary continues to erode. And if you don't have support around that, you're going to find yourself overgiving in multiple areas. And that's where you're going to burn out. Burnout is so much about setting and enforcing boundaries and being able to discern clearly what's for you and what's not for you. But again, that takes time.
It's hard.
You know, that's what I was going to say. It takes time. It takes time and it takes experience. That's why burnout's a cycle. That's why I want everyone to have grace for themselves. There's not a day where burnout is eliminated. It's about how you navigate it and the facility you have around it. So each time you get better and better and better. I never look at myself or anyone that we work with as alleviating burnout. We're just identifying the cycle better. So one day you might be a master, and that's what probably a lot of the elders get to, where they're like, I don't care. What you want to do? Oh, I'm good. Me over here, I'm good. Because they know I'm not burning myself out over that. But when we're younger and we're really driven and ambitious, we're willing to do more, and we're willing to play with this narrative of like, you have to sacrifice in order to succeed. That's the key. You got to shift that belief and set those boundaries.
What mindset shifts do you typically find unlock the greatest transformation for your clients?
Shifting the fear of not giving enough. We call it FANGI in our Balanced Ambition program. We have a whole lesson around the fear of not giving enough.
The fear of not giving enough.
If you really are honest with yourself subconsciously, you'll notice it everywhere. Like overachieving at work, making sure that you're everything to your spouse, to your children, to your parents. Am I being a good enough friend? Everything is through a filter of good enough. But because we're high achievers, our bar is higher than most people's standards anyway, because we always think through good enough. So sitting with the discomfort of not giving good enough, like when you can break that, whole new level unlocks. Whole new level unlocks. Again, takes practice, but that's really it. That and external validation. But again, that goes back to that fear of not giving enough, because if you didn't care about what people said, then it wouldn't even matter either way.
When we were chatting before this, you had talked about coming up with that missing piece of the framework, your refresh framework around like, stop giving a damn what any and everybody thinks about you, because it's driving you to burn out. And I would love for you to talk more about that, how you came up with it and like how that fits into the framework.
So I've had multiple rounds of burnout even after leaving my career and starting our company. And No Fucks Given was a great book that shifted perspective. We give so many fucks about things. We care about so many things. And over time, I started to notice in my marriage, in my company, in my relationships, the more I gave a fuck about other people's things, the less focus I had to be able to be the best version of me. And so they just keep talking about keep your eyes on your own paper. So I was at a place, we revamped Balanced Ambition, and there was a missing piece. There was like something that just wasn't connecting. I had been ruminating on it forever. I was talking to our business partners. We couldn't figure it out. And so I did what I would typically tell someone else to do. I went and stepped away from the computer and I took myself to the spa. And it was so interesting because I'm in the spa. I love this place, been there a million times. I know how to do what I need to do, get my lockers, get my shoes off. For some reason, I was really paying attention to what other people may have thought. Because you're also in your bathing suit. And you're also kind of walking around, and I could just feel this aura of me feeling like eyeballs are on me, or am I doing this the right way? I don't know where it came from, but I was sitting waiting for my sushi lunch. And I sat there and I said, God, what do I need to know about this course. And he said, you got to stop caring about what other people think.
Caring about what other people think. It is your life.
It is your life. It is your creation. It is your program. It is your everything. It's your experience of being in this world. Yeah. And when you stop caring about what other people think, you get to birth the actual thing you want to give. Whew. When I tell you, and I thought about, we had a client, she worked with us for 5 years as she left corporate and started her own company. And the biggest things that kept her stuck was external validation, either needed it or she was worried about what other people would think. When we can unlock that, it's going to shift our high performance. I don't believe our high performance goes anywhere, but it will shift where we're performing from, where our ambition is fueled from.
Yes. And where we are focused, like where the fuel for it, and then what we are focused on. Because hopefully we're focused more so on those higher impact projects as opposed to spreading ourselves and our attention and our work across so many different things to try and please other people.
We keep the bar high in all areas.
Yeah, we do. We do. I've been speaking with so many incredible women on this podcast platform since I started. There seems to be a recurring theme. And one of those is around, like, you gotta filter out the noise and stop giving a fuck what everybody thinks. You just gotta stop.
You really gotta stop.
Yeah. And that takes hard work because we're socialized to care and to please. So it's like deprogramming. But it's certainly a theme that I've heard in some way or another in so many of the conversations I've had so far.
I think a large part of that too is recognizing who is around you, because I just had a great conversation with my mastermind yesterday, and we were talking about this very subject. And one of the women said, you have to have a boundary around who knows what's going on in your life. And I'm a vulnerable person, but honestly, when you go to the wrong people about things and they don't validate the idea, or they don't have a growth mindset, they can't think big enough like you're thinking, that's where the negativity seeps in. Like, you had the audacity to be ambitious, and then you go speak to somebody who's not ambitious. That's what happened to me when I left my job.
Girl, that's why I stopped talking to people.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's why the circle got real tight when it came to sharing the vision and who I would trust with it. Because it's so vulnerable, you know, when it's early, it's new, it's fledging, you're thinking, you're creating, and it's so delicate. And it needs to be watered. It needs to be nurtured. It needs sunshine.
It needs to be spoken life into. Yes. And some people don't even understand the power of their tongue. I mean, it's an interesting balance, because I don't know if you've ever had this experience too. You think as high performing women, we all rock with each other in the same way. You then have to have that discernment around collaboration versus competition. Like, who's actually for you? Who's actually excited when you do say, oh, I landed that feature in Forbes, or I just got that promotion.
You have to pay attention to that.
To this board. Right.
What are people saying? Your circle, when you share good news about yourself.
News. Because you might be inadvertently not sharing it because you don't feel safe to share it. And that's a whole nother evaluation.
You really do. And you got to be, I think that's excellent advice. You got to be very tight with your circle in terms of who you're trusting with your vision, who you're sharing these things with, because it can hurt your self-esteem. Just not have a supportive environment for your ambition. We've talked a little bit about the personal elements to the ambition framework and its impact. I want to shift a little bit to the organizational impact as well. You work with high-performing, high-achieving women who work at companies where they are experiencing burnout, which leads to that lost productivity. My day job is in the, let's say, the soft skills space. It's real hard, especially in this environment, to make the case for an investment in the soft skills. Like, if you do this, you invest in coaching for your women leaders, it is going to reap rewards for your business. But what is the business case that you tell them? What are the metrics, the impact that you use to sell an investment in soft skills?
I appreciate this question, because I don't think that ROI is often looked at as it needs to. And we engage with an organization if they can't clarify what their ROI would be. First and foremost, I'm not convincing anyone of their ROI, but we will explain examples of how we've seen companies measure their engagement and then produce ROI. So first and foremost, are they measuring it? So there's a large tech firm that has a daily, if I tell you this, you might figure out who it is. They monitor their culture and their engagement on a daily basis. And at the end of the month, their people leaders will get a report on their levels of engagement. And depending on how positive they are or how negative they are, the people leader can be trained up if and held accountable for that level of disengagement. And so that's it's a double-edged sword. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes the people leader doesn't have an impact on what the entire corporation is doing that would affect the culture. But nonetheless, that's a good way. So if you're doing like pulse surveys, that's a way that we can start to measure engagement increasing. But also, depending on the size of the organization, we can go as large as corporate, but oftentimes our sweet spot is in middle market. And they may, some couple $1 million, have about 1,000 employees, smaller organizations where they really need to be focused on productivity and absenteeism, right? And communication. And so if we're working with an executive leader one-to-one, we're going to look at their SMART goals and identify how improving your well-being, how is improving your leadership boundaries and how you're running your team going to help you all hit this particular goal. And then we'll align our coaching plan to those metrics as well. So we make sure to tie it into some form of SMART goal or some form of culture tracking metric if they have it in place. If the organization is invested in trying to improve their women leadership pipeline, we would expect to see as they should be, right? We would expect to see some structures in place. Is it how many people are promoted? What are the metrics? So if you were talking and you don't already have metrics, I need you to go back to the drawing board, create some intentionality there so that we can actually have a project to support. I think sometimes people get in and do a feel good and, oh, she's going to feel more empowered. That's great. But the true premise of coaching is to get you to a goal, to get you to the Olympics, to get you to win the championship. We have to have a project. We have to have a reason why. Otherwise, this is feel good. And that's the issue with soft skills. They think there's no business case, but there is. But you got to connect it to something that actually matters.
You have to connect the dots. And you can usually set metrics around advancement, attrition, for sure. Absolutely. If you set those sorts of metrics, then you're able to back into those and you see gaps in certain groups of people, like certain demographics, when it comes to attrition, when it comes to advancement, they're able to identify a problem and then back into it with a solution. Like, honestly, it's not rocket science, but I tell you, the amount of times, the conversations, the explaining, people struggle. They struggle to understand. And I think, maybe it's on purpose. They don't want to understand, but
it is crazy because who's doing the work? The people. I decided I wasn't going to convince people. It's really difficult working with an organization or a leader who isn't convinced because you have to be coachable. You have to be open to new possibilities. So we just choose to be very selective. We want to be effective. We don't want to have to convince you of things.
No. So I want to shift a little bit to systemic drivers and patterns for burnout. And in particular, I want you to talk about, so early on, we were prepping for this and you were talking about being an ambitious, high achieving woman at the intersection of caregiving and motherhood, and when you became a parent and how all of that exacerbated a burnout environment for you. Like, just talk a bit about those intersections of womanhood and caregiving.
It's a whole story. I remember before being married, before having a child, being that highly ambitious, young professional, low-key, having resentment against the women that got to leave because they had to pick their kid up from
I hate to say that's where I was when I was, 27, but it's true.
Yeah. Like, I was the girl who was working till 7:00 at night when the housekeeping people came. And my husband's calling me like, wait, should I eat dinner without you or not? And then my counterpart was leaving at 4 because she had to run and pick up her child. And I always thought it was a way to get out of doing work or have excuses of not having to produce as much. But when I became a parent, it's a whole nother level. I like to look at who we are in layers, and it's an entirely new layers. I became a mom during the pandemic, and that was after 2.5 years of IVF. IVF humbled me. IVF humbled my ambition because When we found out that the only option we had to conceive was IVF, was after a diagnosis of male infertility. I don't think that we speak about how often
No, we
IVF
don't.
is for male infertility as well,
Yeah.
more than you may think. And so, what happened to me, my ambitious ego, I'm sitting in that room, that doctor's office. They had no tissues, so I'm all messing up my makeup. I was so she had to run out the room and get tissues. And I sat there and I said, "Wait, hold up," because I've been winning my whole life. I was the class president for 5 years in a row since
Wow.
8th grade. Okay. I had all these accolades.
Yeah.
And now I have to go through almost a 90% me process because of his infertility. It was really difficult. So I will say that during that time, I definitely was supported highly by a coach and by therapists. I reduced the level of work and change systems in our company. So there wasn't as much work and coaching dependent on myself because I was going through my own emotional roller coaster, being at doctor's appointments every morning. So it humbled my ego of thinking that anything I could put my mind to, I could achieve because 5 cycles in and we didn't have a baby. And every single loss, I had to re-energize an ambition that was already used to be always there, but now it was getting like crushed over and over again from something that had nothing to do with me because I was whole and healthy. And so having victory over IVF and having our little girl, and then 3 months later, the pandemic hit. I will say over the 5 years of being a mother, I've experienced a lot of adjustments around how to be the mother I want to be and also being the successful woman I want to be, growing a business and focusing on my marriage and being there for my mother and my grandmother, right? All these different layers. And it just had to keep getting adjusted. And I had to settle in a piece of, I'm in my motherhood season right now. She's 5. I probably got her till about 12 before I'm not cool. I hope I'm cool forever, but you know what I'm saying? So with that comes a piece of acceptance that says, I can shift into high gear in my family and in my relationships and trust and know that my career and other aspects that I may not be able to pour into as much right now will be there so that I can be in my mother season. I can be in my family season. And that's a hard intersection because now that I look back to who I was judging, that mom was choosing the same thing. She wasn't ambitious in going for promotions like I was. It appeared that she was fine at the level she was at. And now I'm seeing she accepted the layer that she was at. That's where she wanted to be.
That is something. We have all of these different layers to our lives, but you spoke about it in terms of like accepting the season that you were in. Because the challenge that I find with, I think lots of other women, myself included, is that I try to keep everything in the air at once. Like all of it. So there's my career, and then there is my kids, and then there are friendships, and there are hobbies, and then there are entrepreneurial ambitions. It's like how to accept and really make a choice and then lean into a particular season of your life. Not necessarily dropping the other balls, but like really being intentional about focusing.
If I can share something a little bit deeper, that is the issue around why we all do it. It's because we believe that in order to succeed, we must effort. And we are females, we have feminine energy. And by being aligned to our happiness and our joy and our fulfillment, we open ourselves up for more abundance to come in. For example, when you get to be with your children and you are feeling that connection and that joy and that possibility and that radiance, you open up the abundance in your career. You open up the abundance in other places. And oftentimes we're not taught about that deeper connection. It's really about keeping ourselves in a sustainable, high vibrational, connected, well taken care of, everything's always working out for a space so that we can allow things to come to us and attract them. But as high achievers, we think that we're in charge and we can control it and we push our way there. Yeah, that's the masculine energy. That's my whole focus is Balance Ambition, the Ambition Studio. We really are here to awaken the feminine energy of ambition. We operate in a masculine energy of ambition.
I'm gonna write that down.
It's a whole module in our course. We're taught the patriarchal, strong Black woman way, but we also don't know our lineage of how our ancestors, our great grandmas actually made things happen. It wasn't only through effort. and grit and bear.
It was
They
the
were
retraction.
spiritual. They were resting. They were manifesting. That's a whole nother thing. Trusting our intuition.
I love where this conversation is going. Awaken the feminine energy of ambition, lean into our intuition, into attraction, and that energy. Because to your point, the version of ambition that so many of us are tied to and gunning for is this male patriarchal,
Yep.
in particular white male patriarchal version, capitalistic,
Industrialism.
ruthless, industrialistic, like all of that just leaves us spent and feeling unconnected. So I really like how holistic you're approaching all of this and recognition of who we are at work, outside of work.
Yeah, it was a key that unlocked it for me. When I was training to become a coach, it was a year-long program, and there was a weekend that was all about spirituality. I had a different kind of relationship to church and didn't really know where spirituality fit in. And that weekend unlocked a power in me and grounded me in a different space of knowing. And I started operating from that space and learning about intuition and learning about masculine and feminine energies. And it's key. You know, it's interesting though, when women come to us and they want to hit a goal, they want to get a promotion or they want to improve their leadership or they want to grow their businesses, and we attach it to an ROI goal. It looks like boom, boom, boom structure. And we get behind the scenes and we're in a coaching call and we are all woo and we're talking about childhood stuff. And they're like, I did not expect this. And I said, welcome to transformation. People don't know what it really will take. And it's not just about being held accountable to milestones. It's really about transforming how you relate to yourself.
Transforming how you relate to yourself and being connected to your intuition. That there's so much power in being connected to our intuition. I had to learn that I had to get really quiet to hear the answers.
Yeah.
To your point about going to the spa, like you went to the spa and then you asked and the answers came. Like I had to learn to get quiet, and that also included not asking everyone around me their opinion, what they think I should do, how I should do it, where I should do it, because I got to a point where I felt so disconnected, Queirra. Like I felt like I didn't even know my own thoughts anymore. It was like, what? I'm over here asking everybody what they think I should do because, you know, on the surface, it's I'm getting buy-in. But what does that even really mean? At this point, I'm just confused. I don't even know what I think, girl.
Oh my gosh, you're so spot on. I often say that, you know, your intuition whispers she's not gonna fight. She's going to pull you towards your values and towards your goals. You're going to feel an anchoring. You're going to feel a pulling, like something attracting you. But that overthinking voice is loud, obnoxious. It's like, so you can hear it often, but like you said, you cannot hear your intuition until you get quiet because she's whispering. So you do have to silence the noise. And I often find with, especially individuals who are like professionals and high stakes, or like we said, predominantly male industries, they're hesitant to go with their gut. When a man could be in a boardroom and say, I don't know, Tom, I just got a feeling that XYZ ABC. And so a practice to take on for everyone listening is when you have an important decision to make, you sit still for just 2 minutes and just tap into, is it a yes, is it a no, or which direction should I go? Hold it as your truth. And then you can seek advice from like 3 people that you know has your grounded growth mindset that we were talking about earlier, and see if it validates it. Because we still need that guidance. You can still go to your mentor, your coach, but you need to learn how to ask questions like, hey, Naya, I'm thinking about bungee jumping. I'm really excited. I'm a thrill seeker. And I just wanted to know what you thought about it. You lead with what you're thinking with, so that it's not this open, scared. Have you ever tried bungee jumping before, Naya? It's a completely different approach when you already know your answer.
Completely different. And you know, the person that I first heard this from is one of my good friends, Bosima St. John. We were sitting at this vineyard and it was like between LA and Malibu.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Wait, that's in the enjoyable. That's the enjoyable one.
The Lux enjoyable. Okay.
Lux enjoyable. We were sitting at a vineyard and it was between LA and Malibu.
Yes.
And we were having like wood-fired pizza and wine. And I was talking to her and she was telling me about how she does not ask people what they think she should do. She does not ask people what they think she should do. She asks for information, right? If you're interviewing, the question isn't, is this a good place to work? The question is like, what is your representation of women in senior leadership positions?
Yes.
So that then you can make your own decisions about if it's a good place to work for you. Right. Boom. And when she said that, I said, it changed everything. I just love and admire her so much. But when you have those sorts of conversations, and that was a turning point for me in asking people what the fuck I should do with my own life. It's like, I will ask you for information and inputs.
Yeah. That's unapologetic ambition. She's the model poster child for it. Oof.
Yeah.
Okay? And accountability and holding you accountable and everything else. Yeah. I love that. Ask for information because that's what you're doing. But if you're not intentional about what you're asking for, you can get some crap. And then now you're all in your fear and your guilt and your shame and you're scared. That's so deep.
Yeah.
I love that.
Queirra, thank you so much for being here. I feel like I could talk to you all day. I am going to ask you a couple parting questions. Okay. One, what's one piece of balanced ambition wisdom that you would like to leave the Black Girl Ambition listeners with today?
Practice leaving space for your boundaries. Practice phrases that are going to reinforce your boundaries and do it regularly. When you can be at home, just practicing saying, I'm not available, or I've already made myself clear, or whatever your phrase is going to be. When it's time to use those phrases, you will be able to have it flow off your tongue, and then you won't have the early erosion of, your wellness and leading to burnout.
Very good one. Very good one. I spoke with a therapist recently, and she on the Black Girl Ambition podcast, and that is some of the advice that she shared actually too. She said, practice by yourself, practice in the mirror, practice with your therapist so that when you get in the moment of needing to say no and hold your boundary, it's not this reaction of the first time that you're having to do it. What is your greatest ambition? This can be personally, professionally, for Queirra Fenderson. What is your greatest ambition in life?
My greatest ambition is to see our work impacting hundreds of thousands of women, and that women leadership will rise again. And when I say again, because we know we had queens, and I truly believe in the feminine power and the energy. And so if I can be a part of that at some weight, to see the rise again.
How can my listeners connect with you? Where can they find you?
Well, of course, at theambitionstudio.com. I play a lot on LinkedIn now, so you can find me on LinkedIn. Remember, it's Queirra with a Q. And, just around the DMV, speaking, leading, training, doing what we do. Connect with us on our website at theambitionstudio.com, where we give away our free first lesson of balanced ambition so that you can understand your wellness, what your tactical, practical, and enjoyable needs are. Connect with me on social.
Thank you so much for being here today, Queirra.
Thank you for having me. It was such a good conversation.
So fun.
Overzealous when I'm thinking about the cash flow. I never had no handouts, just came natural. I've been tested so much, all these wrestlers nice.